All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special treat for everybody here. We have Mark Longo, and if you've been paying attention to the news, Mark was the owner, father of Peanut the Squirrel and Fred the Raccoon, whose lives were cut short by the authorities in New York. So we have him. We're going to tell his story. Also with him is Nora Marino, who is his attorney in handling his legal matters. And we want to hear the story. So, Mark, first of all, I guess, how did you get into animal rescue? How did you come to meet Peanut and Fred? And just kind of tell your story. I want to hear it, and then I want to hear about all the legal action that's taking place.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, Scott, for allowing us to come in here and continue, to spread awareness and to tell our story. Long story short, I am a mechanical engineer. I work in New York City. And one random day, I unfortunately saw a mama squirrel get hit by a car. And I thought she was still alive. As I got closer, I noticed that she had passed, but there was a little baby squirrel trying to cross the same busy street. So I ran in the middle of the street. I thought I could kind of shoo him away, but instead of him running away, he crawled up my leg. So I kind of just realized then and there he was kind of asking for help. So I did bring him home. I did some research. I tried to find some rehabbers. Obviously, in this kind of area, finding a rehabber is not very easy. So, took to Google, reached out to some people that weren't relatively close to me, and started the path of helping, Peanut, rehab. So for about 8 months, fed him, kind of bathed him, made sure, I was his mama for the 8 months. And then we released him. We did what's called a soft release. So I did put him in my backyard. And to keep an eye on him, make sure he was okay. Maybe he brings his family over one time, or, if he ever had some bad weather or needed some extra food, we were there to provide it. Unfortunately, after a day and a half after being outside, Peanut ended up getting attacked, lost half of his tail, and I ended up seeing him sitting on my porch. As soon as I opened the door, he ran inside, and that's kind of how the story started. I ended up putting one silly video of him jumping from the refrigerator to me, and it hit about 300 million views on social media, and it just kind of exploded from there. From there, we went from commercials to TV interviews to Peanut becoming the world's most famous squirrel. So for 7 years, we've been doing the social media, on top of my current job and, doing, normal life stuff. This didn't make me famous. Being called the squirrel dad is nothing to, be proud about. But, my wife and I sat down one day and, we said, well, we have this platform with millions of people watching Peanut. What can we do to help use this platform to help other animals? So we did a little research on starting a nonprofit. We started the all of the paperwork behind the scenes while we looked for a bigger property. And we came across Pine City. There was a farm for sale that was about 350 acres of land. We went and visited it, and immediately my wife fell in love with property. So we got back home. We developed a business plan. We wanted to start a nonprofit animal rescue. Obviously, animals don't live as long as we do. So we kind of wanted to solidify a legacy for Peanut. And by starting Peanut's Freedom Farm, that's what we thought would be the best way to use his social media as a little bit of a legacy for the little guy. So we moved here last April, and we started to develop this nonprofit. My wife and I put our life savings into this project. We purchased the project. We started the construction. But obviously, with a nonprofit, you do need extra funding. So we took to social media to help raise money and awareness of what we were trying to do, and hopefully to find more animal lovers who are in tune with what we were doing, and hopefully get them on board for some more donation. And then this threw a wrench in the project. Obviously, a little bit of a back end was, when we got up here, obviously this is new to us. Starting a farm is very new to me. My wife grew up on a farm. But filing paperwork and following the rules has always been something that's very near and dear to me. I don't want anybody to come and take my animals. So, Department of Agriculture came and did an inspection of our farm. There was a few hiccups, but they were there to help us get the proper paperwork and do the necessary steps for us to accomplish what we were trying to accomplish. They even took a step forward and also helped us with paperwork that wasn't, it was something for the future. It was about adopting animals out. They provided all of the information and were willing to help us with the paperwork moving forward. So they were very, very helpful. And then kind of the DEC out of the blue shot me a text message and a phone call in mid-May. telling me that I would never be able to have Peanut in the state of New York ever, which was just a blatant, overpowering kind of tough guy attitude. Instead of going, hey, you move to a new state, there's a little bit of a different regulation here. This is what we need you to do. But that was never a conversation we had. It was more bullying to go, we're just not going to allow you here, even though there's proper steps to do that. But we started to do the steps anyways. My wife and I went and took the test and the exam all through the DEC. So we thought we were doing the right stuff. Obviously, we put in the application. They knew our information was in their system. All we had to do was wait for them to receive our application to do the interview with them. And then just straight out of the blue, October 30th happens. And 9 officers, 6 with weapons, drive up my driveway. And, there's the story right there is why do we need 9 officers, 6 with weapons to come and confiscate a squirrel and a raccoon from an animal sanctuary? And that's why we're here talking.
Yeah. So let me back up a little bit. So you come across, you save Peanut's life, basically, and you say, let's, this is a good thing. Love animals. I'm assuming you have more than just squirrels at your animal sanctuary.
Yes.
What kind of animals do you have there?
Anywhere from horses to cows to donkeys to sheep to bunnies to pigs. You kind of list it. We have over 300 animals here that we have rescued from around the country.
Okay. And so you seem like a rule follower. I mean, you're an engineer. My experience with engineers, so sometimes when I have juries, I don't like engineers because sometimes they're a little too rule follower. It depends on the type of the case. But so you're doing everything by the book. It sounds like you're getting licenses, permits, you're checking all the boxes to make sure you're doing everything okay.
Correct.
Got it? All right. And so why does the DEC, what does that stand for everyone out there listening?
Department of Environmental Conservation.
Okay. So the Department of Environmental
Conservation. New York State, Scott. It's a New York State department. New York State Department, DEC.
It's a New York State department, and they're here to, I guess they're involved in conservation issues for animals and things like that around the state. Is that right?
Allegedly, that's what they claim.
Okay. Well, why do they hate animal rescues? That's my question. Why do they hate animal rescues? How did you get on their radar where they're saying you're saving all these animals, assuming let's just assume they like animals too, and they want to rescue animals that are injured or homeless or malnourished or anything along those lines. How is it that they came to look at you and Peanut and have a problem with you and Peanut? How did that come about?
If you don't mind, I want to just jump in on that because we don't know the answer to that question, Scott. And it's a really good question and we can't wait to find the answer. But as of right now, there's been no transparency from the DEC or the state or any agency or department of the state or the county, which is Chemung County, or Elmira, which is the animal control agency that we believe ended up killing these animals. There's been no transparency from anyone. We don't know why they targeted Mark and Danny's farm. We don't know what complaints were made. We don't know from who they've come. We don't know where the bodies are. We don't know if they even still have the bodies. There has been no contact from anyone, from any governmental agency to Mark and Danny at all. And then when I got involved, and I've sent several freedom of information requests, demands of preservation of evidence requests, my notice of claim, they know who I am. They know how to reach me. Nobody's contacted me at all from the state of New York. So there's been zero transparency here. This is not a private entity where they have to, open their books to us. This is a government agency or department or entity that supposedly works for the people. Why is there no transparency? So unfortunately, we don't have an answer to that question. If and when this gets into full-blown litigation, there will be discovery demands, and hopefully we'll get that information. We've already made a freedom of information request for that information. Who were the complainants? What were the complaints? What were they about? Where were they from? We've gotten no answers.
Yeah, and that's that's outrageous. That I talk about all the time on my show where I the government, they work for us, and they needs to be transparency. If it were up to me, there would be video cameras in every office, government agency. We could see what the heck they were doing over there. And the fact that you've submitted Freedom of Information Act requests or the equivalent of a FOIA request there in New York. I mean, what's the time frame in which they have to respond? Or are they just going to ignore it and you're going to have to litigate it?
No, they have, there's in we call it FOIL, Freedom of Information Law requests. It's the same thing as FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests.
Okay.
In New York, it's FOIL. So they basically, it is statutory. They have a certain amount of days to respond, or if they cannot respond in those amount of days, they have to let you know that they can't respond and they need extra time. Now, I've been doing this for a long time. I've done many Freedom of Information requests in the past, and sometimes they ignore you, and then you have to maybe file a petition in the court to compel them to comply. I don't know if that's going to happen here. I mean, I'm hoping at that point we'll be in litigation, and I'll have discovery demands we're going to have to respond to. And we're going to get the information one way or the other. That is my hope and my belief. But as of right now, there's been no response except a pro forma, email. We've received your request. We're working on it, which I think everyone gets that same email when they make a Freedom of Information request with the DEC.
Typical government email response. We've received your request.
100%.
We'll respond within X number of days.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't personalized to me at all. Like it wasn't dear, it didn't reference Mark or the peanut case. It was just a very pro forma standard, cookie cutter response.
So Mark, before we kind of get to what took place when they showed up at your property, had you received any notices or complaints to say, hey, we're concerned that maybe you're exploiting Peanut the squirrel, you're not treating him well? I assume he was living like a king, right? I mean,
that's what it is, Scott. I'm actually sitting in Peanut's room. For anybody to say that Peanut didn't live the world's best life for a squirrel, you're sorely mistaken. There's most people that don't have their own rooms, yet my squirrel had his own room. That guy lived like a king. The content never changed whatsoever. We just did fun, silly things. We ate waffles together. He was best friends with my cat. I didn't make any money off of Peanut. And that was kind of like, the counterattack to this was, oh, Mark, you were exploiting Peanut. Like, no, we're just making silly, fun content for people to enjoy. And then, I started a nonprofit animal rescue. I put my time, my blood, sweat, and tears into this place for negative money. I don't get paid doing this, and I put all my life savings into this. So it was kind of a little bit of kind of a gut-wrenching, heart-crushing, feeling to get these comments that I'm somehow profiting off of this. The only thing that I'm actually looking for is donations for my sanctuary, but we did not get anything other than some minor complaints. I believe it was the same people who reported me to the DEC with animal control and stuff like that, but they all called me. They came to the farm multiple times. They said, everything is great. What you're doing is great. We even had the state vet come out and actually praise my wife for doing extra testing on our goats. She is very strict. We do blood work and fecal work all the time. For the horses, we have farrier work every Sunday. We have dental work. We get blood work done. We deworm them every a few months. We were by the book, making sure that our animals, after being so neglected and being taken out of slaughter auctions and kill pens, that they were getting the best quality of life. Everybody around here knew about it. So I believe when those kind of reports or complaints were not working, whoever was filing the complaints kind of stepped it up a little bit. And again, we don't have these answers that we all want. Right now, it's all speculation.
And that's kind of the frustrating thing when you're dealing with the government, is sometimes you have to commence litigation before you can get a response, because they're just going to ignore you and think, oh, we're the government, we don't have to give you any response. Like I said, even though they work for you.
Right. And that's a huge, great point, Scott. And this as being an attorney as well. It's just, the government seems to forget that. And, our Constitution is such a brilliant document that, when it was created, it was created from people who lived under the rule of a bad king, where if you spoke poorly about the king, you got your tongue cut out, or they killed family members. So when the founding fathers, or as I like to say, founding parents, I'm sure they got some advice from their wives here and there. When the founding when our founders developed the Constitution, it was, no, you can say whatever you want. No, you are going to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, because under the king's men could just walk into your house, take whatever they want, even your daughter or your wife, and leave. And so our Constitution was to prevent all of that. And I just feel like government has gotten so big and so huge and so arrogant that they think that they can just do whatever they want. And what they did to Mark was bullying. It was an intimidation tactic that ended up with the deaths of these animals. And for anyone who's had animals like myself, my animals are my family. I love my dog and my cats, and I've had 6 rescue dogs, and I loved every one of them like a family member. I was crushed when I lost all of them, which was because of natural causes. I mean, Mark's animals were really murdered. I don't know what other word to use for it. They weren't. This whole rabies thing is a whole other thing. When
they were kidnapped, tortured, and killed, is the way I see it. And that's, I hope, don't mean to upset you,
No.
Mark, but that's the way I see it.
I couldn't agree more.
And, Nora, you're absolutely correct. And we talk about this all the time. And that's why we keep the old Constitution right here.
I love that.
Desk, is that, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, the original states wouldn't ratify the Constitution unless the Bill of Rights were put in there, which were restrictions on the government, because these people had always lived under a dictator. The king would literally be like, oh, I don't like what you're saying about me. I don't like what they're saying in church. I don't like, the fact that you have weapons that you could use against my soldiers. Oh, we don't like you today. We're not sure what is going on, but we're going to go rummage through your house. We're not sure what we're looking for, but we'll know it when we find it. And then we're going to arrest you, throw you in the gallows. Maybe we'll give you a trial. Maybe we'll give you an attorney if you're lucky. And so these type of things were put in there as a restriction, a limitation on government. But oftentimes people in the government do not, they think that, their job is to obviously loot the treasury and enrich their friends, and not to work for the people that are there to do it.
And they feel like they can.
Frustrating.
They can act with impunity. And that's what this case to me is so egregious, because it involves 2 main things that are near and dear to me: the Constitution and also animals. Because the fact that they could take these animals within a matter of hours and kill them like they were nothing, like they were meaningless objects, infuriates me. And I'm hoping that this case not only brings light to our constitutional rights here in this country as Americans, but I hope it also casts light on how government views animals. I mean, under our law here in New York State, animals are mere property. And although they've been elevated in certain respects in very limited ways, I mean, overall in our country, animal status needs to be raised. They are not things. They are not the same as my desk or this stapler. They are not that. They are living, breathing beings. And these animals deserve some respect, and my clients deserved some respect. And if there was some fear of an infection, a rabies virus, which I think is complete nonsense personally, and we can get into that later. I mean, there were so many other ways to handle this, but to take these animals, kill them. Mark heard about this through the news. They didn't even tell him. How outrageous is that?
Yeah, no, you make a good point. I mean, I have Miss Winnie the Bulldog. Tell me Miss Winnie the Bulldog is not a member of our family. She lives like a princess, a queen. We make arrangements around her schedule. I mean, it's all about her. And if someone were to come in and say, I mean, think if social services had shown up, taken your child because we think there's something wrong. They take them off. They take them to the hospital to do some tests, and they're like, the child died. Sorry about that. Don't bother.
It's outrageous.
It is outrageous. So, Mark, I want to get back to the date that the law enforcement shows up, and why do all these agencies, were they dressed like SWAT, or were they just the local sheriff showing up in a pair of blue jeans and an officer uniform? Or were they all decked out in SWAT gear?
No, they had all their gear on. They had their chest pieces on there. They were fully equipped to do what they do best.
Except one thing: body cams.
Body cams, though. They failed to put those on that day.
See,
we demanded that in a freedom of information request also, Scott, but we'll see what happens.
Well, we have a law here in Colorado that says if the police officers don't turn on their body cams, there's a presumption of something nefarious and illegal going on. And once again, if you talk to most police officers, they will tell you they won't make a move without a body cam because it usually protects them. But if
Correct.
somebody's telling them don't turn them on, or ooh, we forgot to turn them on, I mean, there should be a presumption that there's something nefarious, illegal going on. Now we'll give them the benefit of the doubt here because we don't know.
We
But
don't know. We don't know yet. Yes.
so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But so walk me through this. Did they meet you at the gate? Did they knock on your door? Did they kick your door in? What happened?
So I have a daily routine. I go to the gym in the morning. As soon as I get home, I prep all of the horses' food. We have 72 horses. All of about 99% of them came from bad situations. So they can't afford to miss a meal. They're hundreds of pounds underweight. So I do my daily routine of driving grain around, making sure everybody gets grain 3 times a day and they get hay 24/7. So I was making my rounds, and I drive down the driveway. Our driveway is about a half a mile long. And I was at the end of the driveway, and here comes, a band of trucks. They stopped me at the beginning. I asked who they were, this and that. I said, well, if you don't have a search warrant, we could talk right here. And boom, he handed me this piece of paper. And I'm here to tell the full story. I called my wife. I was able to slip off a call, and I was like, hey, they're here, put the animals somewhere. And she was able to put one in the closet and the other one in another closet. But as soon as they approached the house, my wife is of German descent. We're going through all of the legal paperwork. She is a pending citizen. She falls under my care. So as soon as they kind of went up to her, she is deathly afraid of law enforcement. She immediately told them where Fred was. He was in the closet, and then you could presume, Peanut's pretty close by. She had the matter of maybe 2 to 3 minutes to grab 2 animals from 2 separate parts of our large house to put them in 2 bathrooms. But as soon as she got up there, or as soon as they approached her, she immediately told them, I met them up at the end of the beginning of the house, and immediately was met with, are there cameras in the house? As if that was, so important to this investigation. But they did their sweep of the house. They made sure that they were safe. And they proceeded to tear my house apart. They were taking photos of every portion of this house. We have 350 acres of land. They walked 80 acres up my field to tell the logger that is working for me up in the field that they were there. And then they they proceeded to do what they do best and intimidate us. They put us in the corner of a driveway. The lead investigator, Joshua Crane, asked my wife twice her legal status in this country. He is not ICE, he is DEC. I reached for my phone. I was asked what I was doing. We were intimidated the entire time, but I know to comply with the authority. I'm not here, trying to cause any issues. You have 6 people with weapons. I'm not going to make a move that I'm not supposed to. At what point I went to the bathroom, I was taken to the bathroom, and the officer went in before me and took apart my toilet before I was able to go to the bathroom. Then he sat behind the door while I went to the bathroom. They proceeded to ransack my house, mainly just my bedroom. But they didn't do that for about 3 hours. They did other things throughout my house, which I don't know because I was sitting outside, but they knew exactly where these animals were as soon as they got there. Why they didn't just go up and grab the animals, I'm not quite sure. Again, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered here, but at the final hours, I did end up going back in the house when they had Peanut, and I kind of begged and pleaded, I'll take Peanut back to Connecticut. I told them that we took the test and we had all of our applications in, and they did 2 things. The gentleman to my right-hand side told me that, when does the snowball effect end? It started with a squirrel, now it's a raccoon. What's coming here next? As if I was harboring bears and alligators in a Manhattan apartment. Somebody dropped off Fred. He was here as a temporary guest. Because we are a sanctuary. People thought that, if they find an animal and we're close by, why not drop the animal off at the sanctuary? Obviously there's rules and guidelines, but it's not like you could just pick up a phone book and call the local rehabber to come and get it. I thought it was my job and my duty, to reach out, try to find somebody, but in the meantime, help care for the animal. That's why we're ultimately here.
Mark did the right thing. Mark did the compassionate thing. And that's what's so, sickening to me. Here's a good person who did the right thing with a baby raccoon, and he's going to be punished for it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it just, it's, I feel like the thinking is so backwards.
So Mark, when you said, hey, do you have a search warrant? Did they have a search warrant to seize, Peanut?
They did, but it looks like after we fully read the search warrant, essentially the search warrant says they could look for anything unlawful in my house, which is so
Well,
broad
no,
that
I think it said, Mark, I think it said they were, it did describe a squirrel that was peanut and a
right.
raccoon. It had
But
a description, but I think it said or any other unlawful wildlife, if I remember correctly.
I'm gonna read it to you because I got it right smack
Okay.
here.
I like going straight to the source.
But it
Mine's
says,
prepared. I love it.
yeah. A reasonable cause to believe that having been established that the property of the kind and character described in CPL 690, sub 2, property that is unlawfully possessed, and CPL 69 dash blah blah blah, property that constitutes evidence or tends to demonstrate the offense was committed in New York. That's the beginning of this paragraph. And then it goes on to being, unlawful possession of squirrel, raccoon, and any unlawful wildlife. So two different branches of this paragraph say two different things.
Right, but I think it's the part at the bottom. I'm going to pull it up myself. I think the first part is like a preamble, but I don't want to get hung up on that.
Yes. So that's the warrant copy that they were giving to you. But have you seen the actual affidavit where they're, alleging, what they have to go to?
No, the affidavit in support, no. And that was the first thing I asked Mark, right, Mark?
Yep.
I was like, what about the affidavit in support? And that would be what was submitted to the judge. Just for your audience, that's what's submitted to the judge in support of your request for a warrant as law enforcement. You can't
what
just
established the probable cause.
exactly either. And this is, and Scott, that's another thing. This is like an upstate county. It's not New York City. So I've done a little digging and research myself, and I'm not even sure, like there's not always an affidavit in support. It could be oral testimony in support. So I was either seeking an affidavit in support, or if there was oral testimony, a transcript of the oral testimony in support. We have not seen anything. That was one of my freedom of information requests, was for any and all documents, whether affidavit or if there was oral testimony and there's a transcript. Of course, we obtained that in support of procurement of the warrant, and there's been no response so far.
Okay. So Mark, I mean, you did the right thing. Obviously, you didn't agree with what was going on, but you didn't do anything silly that was going to get you arrested or charged with some sort of obstruction. So my hat's off to you. Oftentimes people want to, duke it out with the police or something like that, and you did the right thing because, if you think that there's something illegal taking place, you kind of have to take it, so to speak, and then go through the process to do that. So I commend you for keeping a clear head and keeping the cool about you, because so many times people just create bigger issues for themselves by not just saying, all right, I'm going to get my lawyer. We'll deal with this in court. So from the time the property, you said they were on your property for about 3 hours. Was that right?
I would say closer to 4 to 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, at the end of the day, Scott, it was, I studied criminal justice in college. I understand. I have an utmost respect for the law. Two things went through my mind is comply, but also I was scared to death. I've never been in trouble with the law whatsoever. And you see that many people with weapons. You're kind of just shaking, you're trying to get out of this nightmare. So my main focus was let them do what they have to do and then fight this in court, get my animals back, give me a fine or arrest me. But they left my house. They gave me the search warrant and 2 pieces of paper of the chain of evidence. They didn't arrest me. They didn't cite me. They didn't tell me to appear in court and give me a violation. They just took my animals, did what they wanted to do in my house, and then left.
So when your wife was within minutes, it sounds like they had found Peanut and Fred. So what were they rummaging around every nook and cranny of your house for? Do you think they were running some sort of, underground railroad for squirrels? I mean,
Right.
That's a good question. And just looking at the warrant, if you don't mind, because I did bring it up, the part where it says you are hereby authorized to, because as I said, the beginning is like a preamble. They were authorized to seize all items listed in the application, and that's where they described the animals, and to seize all other illegally possessed wildlife or parts or articles containing parts thereof. Not quite sure what that part means. And to enter and search the business between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. and until the work is completed. That's it. So once they got those animals, in my opinion, their search should have been finished.
Absolutely.
Finished.
They've
That's
found
number one. And number two, once they got those animals, they needed to retain possession of those animals. There's nothing in this warrant about giving them permission, power, authority to kill these animals. And
Right.
as you probably know, Scott, in criminal law, and you're the criminal lawyer more than me. I mean, I'm a constitutional attorney, but with criminal law, that's considered evidence, a product from a seizure, right? So law enforcement has to maintain that evidence pending further order of the court. So
Absolutely.
if these were live animals, what right did they have to kill them? None.
Heck, police, if they seize, for example, a marijuana plant, they stopped seizing it because they had to keep it alive, and people had they had to
Wow.
replace
Any
the
lighting.
plant. Hey,
Wow.
if you seize it, you got to make sure that if
That's
it was
right.
obtained illegally, to give it back in the condition that it was found in. So, yeah, this is just outrageous.
There was just a case in upstate New York involving 2 cows that were killed, and there was a criminal trial. Just real quick, these cows wandered off of one property onto another property. The second property owner was a sanctuary. She kept the cows. The first property raised them for slaughter. They went back. They took back their cows. She was charged with illegal possession of stolen property. And when her trial came up, the judge actually threw the case out because the cows were killed and the evidence was gone. And he threw the entire case out against her. So and that was in New York State, and that was in upstate as well. So the fact that these DEC, I mean, this is right in their backyard, and they went and killed these animals without any permission from the court, to me is a huge, just another constitutional violation.
Yeah. And so Mark, I think you said that you found out about the death of Peanut and Fred on social media. They didn't even have the courtesy, the respect to say, "Oh my God, we euthanized Fred or Peanut in any way." I mean,
It was a local news station that called me crying to say, "Hey, your animals are gone." And that was 3 days after I was pleading, call, file a complaint. If you have a connection to the DEC or any, portion of the New York State government, please let them hear my story. Please this. And I'm pleading for these animals who were already killed. And to hear it from the New York State, like I said, I've said this many times. I come from a stubborn, hard Italian family. You wake up, if you're having a bad day, you put a fake smile on, you do what you have to do, you provide from your family, you do all that stuff. So trauma and PTSD has never been something that I truly, I guess I just never understood because I didn't feel it. Scott, since this happened, it's even, I'm doing the interview in Peanut's room because I need to figure out a way to live in this house again. I paid my tax paying money to have my animals killed and murdered and their heads cut off. All in for what? Who won here? The animals sure as hell didn't. I didn't, and what happened with the government? Who actually won here? This was a flex of the muscles. This was somebody who just did not approve of me moving to the New York State or had some kind of issue with me being here. And maybe that was kind of what sparked this internal investigation. 10 months of investigation, and then you come and kill animals from a sanctuary. Everybody's looking for those same answers to these questions.
yeah. So I'm so sorry. Like I said, I mean, some people will say, "Oh, it's just a squirrel and just a raccoon," but it's a family. It's a family pet. They're part of the family. And, I think most people that have ever had a pet, if you're a decent human being, you treat your family members like a pet, and let alone somebody that takes them in a sanctuary situation. It's just outrageous what they've done. So I'm truly, truly sorry for your loss. Now, obviously you got a lot of publicity. I mean, I remember, UFC fighters using their moment to talk about justice for Peanut. Where do you stand now? Obviously, you've got notice of intent, basically, to sue all the government officials. How much longer? What's the status of that in which they have to respond to the FOIA requests, or there are limitations in which you have to, file suit? What's your next step?
I guess do you want me to take that?
Yeah, you can take that, Nora. You're the powerhouse.
Okay. Thank you. Well, basically in New York State, I'm not sure how it is in Colorado. In fact, I think it is actually similar in Colorado. Many states, you have to, anytime you want to sue any government municipality, whether it's a city, a county, a village, or the state, you have to give them notice first. Private entities don't get that notice. I'm pretty sure you have that in
Yeah,
Colorado.
we do. We have like a notice of intent to sue, puts
Right.
them on notice so they know how to preserve
Yeah,
documents and identify
like,
who's got relevant information, and so they can
right.
set aside
And
money for
private
children.
entities don't get that courtesy, but government entities do. So we've served our notice of claim on certain county agencies, and our notice of intent to make claim, which it just has a different name when it involves the state of New York. So we've served our notice of intent on the state departments and the state of New York. So now they get to conduct what's called a 50H hearing. It's pursuant to Section 58 of our general municipal law. And once it's very similar to a deposition where they just get to ask questions about the sum and substance of your claim and your damages. Another little benefit municipalities get here in the state of New York with respect to litigation against them. So once that 50H hearing is completed, then we can file our official lawsuit.
Okay. And are you going to be able to go after the law enforcement officers individually, or do they have immunity under New York law?
We can go after them individually. In fact, that's another freedom of information request we've made for the names of the individual officers. Right now, we only have one name, the one name on the warrant. We don't have any other names. So there were, Mark, what was it, 9-10 people there? We have one name.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, like all things in life, people try to capitalize on tragedy. Have people tried to take advantage of Peanut's good name and take advantage of your sanctuary?
Unfortunately, Scott, yes, and in more ways than one. And we're not talking about minor sums of money. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. Actually, Nora was the one who brought it to my attention about this whole crypto realm, and how people were benefiting off of this story, actually using my photos and the likeness of this story to kind of pull on people's heartstrings to make a whole lot of money. The photo that they used was, one of Peanut's, milestones in his social media career. So as soon as people saw that, and I mean, my hands are in the photo, as soon as people saw that, they immediately thought it was me. They thought it was my sanctuary. They thought they were joining a community that was built around helping, further our nonprofit. Turns out it was not, and these people were making hundreds of millions of dollars. So, as soon as that came into fruition, I tried to reach out to these people. Honestly, they dragged my name through the dirt on social media as if I was the terror to this story, when in fact it's all mine. Excuse me for coming off like that, but this is my tragedy. I have to live this story every day, and there's people making a lot of money that could have helped our sanctuary move forward. Ultimately, that's my major concern. Is Peanut's Freedom Farm was built around Peanut and his community on social media. So that's how we were gathering a small portion of our donations. I think 40% of our donations came from social media, and my wife and I contributed the next 60%. It's not very easy running this sanctuary. It takes about $30,000 a month. So, when this crypto, story came along, I was like, how is this even possible that you could use my name and you could use my Squirrel, my tragedy, and Fred to make a whole lot of money and kind of leave us in the dirt? So, when the battle was between, me and the people that were creating these coins, they didn't want to hear anything from me. So, we took a different approach. We started our own coin. We started Justice for Peanut. I'm wearing the shirt right now, in hopes that people would understand that these guys were literally scamming them, pretending to be me. And it was still getting crap. I was getting just my name. You go on Twitter right now, I'm a scammer. I stole money. I did this and that. And in reality, I honestly didn't have a clue what was going on. So we took a step further. Obviously, We have a few cease and desist letters for the big major companies that are listing these coins. But at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that people understand that this story is not behind those coins. Those are people making and benefiting from this story. And unfortunately, it comes down to money. You have to raise money for this nonprofit, and the fact that you're taking the money and you're taking the profits and you're running, left a sour taste in my mouth and in Nora's mouth and my whole family. It was very tragic to know that they were making 8-9 figures off of this story.
Yeah, and there's basic copyright laws that just should not be violated, and that may be being violated here, with result to, copyright ownership rights regarding photos, and we have a very competent trademark and copyright intellectual property firm involved, who's handling that. But I was actually having dinner with someone one night, and they said, there's a peanut coin being sold on crypto. I was like, what are you talking about? And I called Mark the next day. I'm like, Mark, do you know about this? Like, it was just kind of crazy. I'm like, do you have anything to do with this? And he didn't. And it was just crazy. But that's that will play out in its own legal way. That's not my wheelhouse. I don't do IP law, but we have a very, very competent attorney on that.
Well, that's good, because like I said, there's always somebody trying to exploit or take advantage of some type of tragedy. And it's one thing if you Mark are signing on and saying, I'm doing this, and the proceeds are going to benefit our sanctuary because it is expensive.
Right.
I mean, you have 72 horses. My ex-wife at one time had 3 horses, and it was, I understand how expensive horses are.
Tell that to my wife, Scott, because we keep getting calls every day. And our sanctuary has over 300 animals. So that's why we started Justice for Peanut as our own token to, tell people, like, again, the justice will get served through the law. But, we're leaving the animals we have high and dry. Once this story goes, obviously everybody's going to move on to the next one. Peanut will stay in kind of the so-called history books of this. But, we wanted to start a community behind this organization to say, justice for Peanut, justice for people who have ever felt the government overreach of, getting pulled over, going 5 miles over the speed limit, and getting yanked out of your car. Those are the people we're fighting for. This wasn't the first time any agency has done what they did to me. It was just a simple fact that Peanut had a larger voice. And the story went worldwide. But how many people have they done this to? I mean, Joshua Crane, the lead investigator of this entire search and seizure, won the DEC award for best agent. How do you go from DEC's best agent to doing this? It's again, all skeptical, but how many times did this agency do what they did and thought they were just going to get away with it? They've missed so many steps in this entire, story, and just mine, that, it makes it look like they didn't do this without blinking. They didn't care that there were, agencies listed on this search warrant that weren't even involved in the actual case.
Well, we don't know who was involved and who wasn't involved.
But it's like, you kind of just said, okay, we're going to do this. Let's just put this together. We'll get the bare minimum. We'll do this. We'll do that. And we'll go make it another day in the office.
Yeah, I think that the main point is that they have likely behaved in this bullying and intimidating manner in the past many times and have likely gotten away with it. And this time there were unexpected consequences for them because of Peanut's.
Well, exactly. And, a lot of people don't realize this unless, somebody raids their house and seizes their property and drags them out of the car or something to that effect, that this could happen to anybody. And people think, oh, this will never happen to me. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Well, from all I can tell, what I know, Mark, you seem like a pretty law-abiding citizen. You're a professional mechanical engineer.
Mark and Danny are absolutely law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, and next thing you know, your life is completely turned upside down. You got agents at your door, rummaging through your house, scaring your wife.
Scott, it was so unnecessary. I mean, they really could have, if there were any questions about, was he following this law or that law? Like, was a raid and seizure and warrant really the best course of action? How about a phone call? How about Mark getting a lawyer, before the raid? If he'd gotten me before the raid, we could have worked something out. You want the animals? You want proof of no rabies? You want this? You want that? You want them out of the state? You want license? Like, whatever it was. Why not try to work it out? Like, you go for the jugular, you go for the most invasive action as your first choice. A warrant for a seizure a search of your house is so invasive. That should be the absolute last option. That should be after you've exhausted every other option to go into somebody's house. I mean, hearing Mark describe it to me, and we've gone over it, several times, I can imagine being forced to stand outside of my house while 10 strangers are inside of my house rummaging through my stuff. What an invasion. That's exactly what our founding fathers didn't want. That's exactly why we have a Fourth Amendment. So why did these officers feel that should have been the first alternative? Not even a phone call, not even trying to work something out, not even say, you know what, we want that squirrel out of the state in 10 days or else. I mean, maybe that would have at least given them an option. They did. And I'm not even saying that would have been the right option, but they did nothing. They went right for the jugular. They went right for the most invasive action they could possibly get. And it was just wrong.
Well, it seems like if they had even just come and knocked at the door and said, hey, do you mind if we take a look around? We got some complaints. We'll just, it seems like Mark would have cooperated at that point and said, hey, check it out. Let's go check out Peanut's room. Make sure he's being treated fairly here. It's just crazy. But, Mark and Nora, this is what, like I said, most people don't realize. And this is, Nora's a constitutional lawyer. And I always say, as a criminal defense attorney, I am a constitutional lawyer as well.
You are.
And it's my job on a daily basis to tell the government, you can't do that. Right. Well, we had a judge who had an officer who, is the best officer ever, came and got the search warrant, and the magistrate or the judge rubber stamped it because, there must be a crime and, the cop wouldn't lie to me. And then here you are, and, you have to fight it, and you have an attorney saying, no, you can't do that. And you all need to take a look at what you're doing. And I think, I don't make promises I can't keep, but I think you are going to come out prevailing on this particular matter. I truly hope you do. So, Mark, I know you said it's expensive to run an animal sanctuary. It's expensive to hire attorneys. If people want to help you out, where could they go to do that?
All right. Thank you so much, Scott. And again, that's ultimately it. The most thing I worried about is to make sure that the sanctuary lives out forever. It had a purpose before, but now it really has. Our utmost motivation, not taking anything away from, this prior, but, we're standing our ground. We're not, I truly believe that this was supposed to, make me and my wife pack up our things and leave, but we're taking a stand. We're not allowing this to just change or deter what we came here to do. And no, it just made the fight even that much bigger for us. We do have a nonprofit animal rescue website. It's called Peanuts Freedom Farm. It's spelled PNUTS, freedomfarm.com. And you could make your contributions through there if you do want to help. Every dollar counts when it comes to these animals. Like I said, we don't pay ourselves doing this. It's all life savings. Like, you won't see a dollar come into my name through this endeavor ever. I had a passion growing up. I loved animals, and I continue to love them. And I just had the opportunity in life to be able to start my own project. So it's very near and dear to see so many people from different kind of rankings in life, from the Supreme Court to Elon Musk to President Trump, and anybody who kind of heard about this story reached out or commented on it to say, hey, this was not okay, and we just need to make sure that this never happens again.
Well, I totally agree, and we'll put a link when this goes up so that people can go to your site. And you're right. I mean, people comment this all the way from Elon Musk to UFCs to President Trump, and it is about Peanut, but it's bigger than Peanut. It's about the Constitution. It's about limitations on government. It's about government overreach. And can you imagine the manpower for 6 to 10 agents to investigate, draft a search warrant, brief the raid on the animal sanctuary? They probably had so many hours in this. The expense to the taxpayers, is this really, they want to spend their money? And so there should be complete transparency. And it's obviously frustrating, but not surprising that any municipality or the state or government agency there in New York would stonewall and try to delay this, and hopefully think it gets off the news cycle, so to speak. But hopefully we can help keep this alive And if there's anything we can do in the future, please reach out to us. And here at Crime Talk, we will do whatever we can to help you out, because this is bigger than just the death, the execution, literally the kidnapping, execution of a rescue animal that wasn't harming anybody and wasn't a danger to anybody at all.
Right. Scott, the only other thing I just wanted to kind of chime in here, while we were being kind of falsely, arrested, like I said before, our horses can't afford to skip a meal. And, we have 350 acres. At one point, my wife and I asked one of the investigators if we can go and feed our horses, because they missed breakfast and they missed lunch. And the gentleman actually went over to the lead investigator and asked him if he could drive around and help me feed my horses. He came back and told me that the investigator said no. So my rescue and neglected horses lost time and food that day. Breakfast and lunch they did not eat, because apparently I was such a big criminal that me feeding my horses was somehow life-threatening to 6 agents with weapons.
Yep.
It's so
ridiculous. Part of the harassment package. It's all part of the harassment package that they were doing that day, to let you know that you're going to do what we tell you to do. And that's it. I've seen it too many times. And like I said, there's lots of good law enforcement out there. I am pro law enforcement. Even
I
as a
completely agree with that statement.
As a criminal defense attorney, I am pro law enforcement.
Agrees too, right,
I
Mark?
agree on that to the utmost fullest. They're bad eggs, but we don't want to take it away from the people who actually put their life on the line to help us, live our free life.
Exactly. We need to get rid of the bad ones.
Can I just comment on one other thing you said?
Please.
For when you said that there's a lot of people out there who'll think, oh, it's just a squirrel or just a raccoon. And this isn't so much me as a lawyer saying this, is just an animal lover with compassion. If you get to know any animal, you can fall in love with any animal. A horse, a chicken, a pig. I mean, animals, they're all emotional, intelligent beings, every single one of them. And, Mark raised Peanut since he was this big, right, Mark?
Yeah,
like this
he was
big.
a little nugget. Yeah.
I mean, Mark and Danny were madly in love with Peanut. There's no other way to put it, right, Mark?
Scott, I was a bit jealous of my wife because he ended up taking her more than me. But Peanut had the opportunity to meet people from around the world. I had people travel from England. I had people travel 12 hours to come and meet him. He was one of the best animals, that I have ever had the honor to be a part of. The biggest thing here is for those people that say just a squirrel and just a raccoon. It's much larger than that.
Yes.
Allow, an agency to come in your house, treat you like a criminal, take your things, detain you for 5 hours, and then cut your animals' heads off. It's not like you just walked into the room and Peanut passed away, or Fred, was sick and he died. You were sat outside thinking that you would have an opportunity to fight this in court. And when that time comes, there's no court appearance. There's no fight because
which
you
shows
killed
Mark
the
was
animal.
completely denied. Mark and Danny were completely denied their right to due process. That's another thing. There's no due process here at all.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, they can take your life, liberty, and your property away, right? But they got to give you due process. And when they violate that, they need to be held accountable.
And then one other thing I want to just say, I know you're probably pressed for time here, though, about Fred, because Fred gets a little forgotten here, and about raccoons in general. And that's another thing. And Mark and I have talked extensively about this, because we do want to see some good come from this tragedy. We really do. And in addition to Mark's sanctuary thriving, we also hope that this provides some type of a beacon of light for all animals, and particularly raccoons, who were very demonized by people. I mean, Mark and I have talked about this. Someone's garbage pail gets knocked over in the middle of the night by a raccoon, and it's a death sentence. The next day there's a trapper there. And trappers, by the way, when they catch raccoons, they generally either bash their heads in or drown them in a cage. They are killed in horrific ways. They are a demonized species. This whole rabies thing is so overblown. We have checked the statistics on New York State's own website. The cases of rabies are so low. Like when they say, oh, raccoon must have rabies. Wrong. It's likely they do not have rabies. So we're hoping that this tragedy will also shed some light on the plight of raccoons, because they are very demonized animals. They don't deserve it. They're sweet, loving animals. I mean, I see the videos of Fred, and I know, Mark, I can see on your face how you feel. And, we want justice on so many levels here, for Mark and Danny, for Peanut and Fred, for animals, for sanctuaries. There's a lot at play here. And we really are grateful to you to allow us this platform to speak about all this.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming on. I hope we're able to help spread the story, and we can get, justice for Peanut and Fred. And also, justice for Mark and his wife, to protect the Constitution, because if we let them, violate somebody's rights like that, they'll do it again, and they'll keep doing it if they think they can get away with it. So I commend you, Mark, for doing the right thing, standing up and, saying, no, this isn't right, and we're going to take action. Once again, why don't you give us the website if anyone wants to make a donation to your sanctuary farm there, so they can help defer some of those expensive costs to keep 72 horses. I can imagine.
Thank you so much, Scott. It is peanutsfreedomfarm.com, and peanut is spelled PNUTS. So it's PNUTSfreedomfarm.com.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here. Thank you, Mark Longo, Nora. Thank you for joining us.